Larry Henry, the clerk of circuit court, told me yesterday that as long as he has been in that elected office, I think it's elected, he has not had to create or offer a trial de novo for anybody. And yet the statute, the Tennessee Code annotated, says that if you have an adverse ruling, if you lose in a sessions court or in a city court, you can appeal. You have a right to a trial de novo. Now, a trial de novo is a new trial. It is not an appeal. And here's why. An appeal implies a record against which you are appealing, right? There's a presentation of facts and law and arguments and evidence, and you lose, and you are saying, well, I deserve to win. This record shows that I entered all the right arguments, I entered all the right evidence, and I lost, and because of this legal reason, or because this oversight, because of this particular rejection or some other rejection of my rights, I lost, and I'm appealing based on this record. An appeal is based on a record. In this situation here in Hamilton County and Chattanooga and in every other city and county in the state, there is this right in the statute for a trial de novo. And that means a new trial. That means you start fresh, absolutely fresh. De novo means of new in Latin. You have a right to an absolutely new trial. And why is that? Well, that's because in sessions court, where most everybody is cited in the county, or in city court, where traffic offenses and city ordinance violations are handled, in all those courts, what was I trying to say now? You have no record, right? These are courts without a record. They are courts without a jury. And they are courts, they're sub-constitutional or extra-constitutional. They're outside the framework of constitutional government and the service provided by the state to the people of giving justice under constitutional restraint with the rights of the people recognized. And you say, well, okay, you're droning, David Tulis. You are droning. Well, not really. What we have in our judicial system is we have a kind of skimming operation, a kind of a racket. And people, thanks to the states creating cities which create these minor courts, and to counties that create these minor courts, we have a system of a mass industry. We have raised a mass industry, which is which feeds and is supported by the law enforcement industry. It is an industry, okay? It is not just a calling for many men and women. It is an industry. Just like like colleges are an industry, and like public schools are an industry. We have a vast industry that's built up around the operation of a sub-constitutional system of law and a legal system that is beneath the Constitution, outside the Constitution. You can't say it's unconstitutional unless you want to, unless you're making a point. And there is an appeal now before a Judge Neil Thomas in circuit court asking some of these questions. And the appeal is from an internationally known crank. And it is a perennial candidate, Basil Marceau, a Santi Daisy resident, and he is possibly one of the smartest people in town. And I say that based on many hours of interviews with this man, not caring so much about him, but asking about his ideas. What are your ideas? What are your theories? What are you basing what you're saying on? What is the substance under your claims? Are you just a crank and a gadfly, Basil Marceau, with your 3 teeth? Or are you saying something that's really important? And what I've done in his regard is I've looked at the statutes and I've read the cases. And some of the cases I've given a great deal of attention to, partly because they're Chattanooga cases. One is 2001 Chattanooga versus Davis, where the city courts were slapped down, just very roughly slapped down, and told that they can't impose fines more than $50. And that was under Judge Walter Williams, and who's now an attorney emeritus at McCoon Law, by the way. And the other was an earlier case, Chattanooga versus Myers, 1991, I think it is, or 1990, that says more or less the same thing. And that is that cities, municipal corporations don't have authority to enforce statute. They don't have that jurisdiction. They have only civil jurisdiction. if these cases are true, okay, if the Supreme Court of Tennessee is saying something that's legally true and legally binding, then what is happening today? What is the legal class, the judges and the lawyers and the bail bondsmen and the probation providers and the court system and all the corrections people and the people who feed the corrections people, the company, for example, that makes a fortune on phone services among prisoners, inmates downtown in the Justice Bill. What about all these people? They make their livings. There's a whole, you might say, a whole series of industry, not a cottage industry. It's more like a metropolitan industry. It's not a cottage, a small little scale little operation. This is a multifaceted, very large operation with thousands of people. Even here in Hamilton County, there are probably thousands of people who make their living off of what this defendant, a criminal defendant, Basil Marceau, says. They're operating against his claim. Okay, so you have a system that operates against seemingly against the high court's rulings, and then the issue being brought to light by this perennial candidate and crank. He ran for governor, got several thousand votes, and he ran for governor on a right to travel, a right to be free platform, a ferocious platform. Not entirely coherent. It's not. He made many of the same points that I would have made if I were a candidate, but they were not well argued. Right? They were not well stated. They were not made for public delivery and public consumption, and that's not just because Basil Marceau has 3 teeth and speaks with a slur. He has trouble speaking and probably trouble eating in his trailer home in Sunny Daisy, but he's hard to understand because he doesn't deliver well and he doesn't argue well. So when I first met him, first heard about him, and I wrote about him before I heard about him, I said, well, he's making some important points here, not just because he's defending the right to travel on the road, the free roads of Tennessee, as opposed to the privilege of operating a motor vehicle in commerce, under license, under insurance, and under the registration law. He says, well, I'm not part of that. And so he's had many cases dealing with that issue of traveling the public right of way freely, right? If you have a property right in movement, you have a constitutional right in the free movement of yourself without asking anybody permission. And he has made that case. And because he's made that case, I've looked very carefully at who he is and what he says. And here's this other claim, not the travel claims he makes, but other claims. And I, David Tulis, your host here at Nooga Radio, have looked into these and want to think further about them. And so the story is from Larry Henry, the clerk of the circuit court, in a near phone interview he gave me yesterday. In a nutshell, he said, well, no one's asked for trial de novo. And the high court judges in the appellate courts, the mid-level appeals courts, the courts of appeal, civil and criminal, have been telling Mr. Marceau and now others, there's a drip of rulings and orders that are being handed back saying that a criminal matter appealed out of sessions court cannot be appealed to criminal court, which means that there can't be a criminal trial and that circuit is not a criminal jurisdiction. Why? But the statute requires appeals out of sessions and city court to go to circuit court. So the implication in the statute is that these courts don't have criminal jurisdiction, and yet crimes by the thousands every year, by the thousands and thousands, are put into these lower courts, these inferior courts, which are civil only. And the court system has been ignoring, according to Basil Marceau, and I would say, according to my penciled-in analysis of the situation, the courts in Chattanooga and Hamilton County have been ignoring the high court for 16 years, at least 16 years, probably more. Marceau says it's 150 years that there has been this support, an implicit support, by the rejection of this concept of the police state. And we've had police in Chattanooga since 1858, maybe 1859, a very early arrival of this police and state function. This social control mechanism of policing we've had since that before the war to prevent Southern independence. Now, we've had for a long time before that, we've had sheriffs, and sheriffs are the true law in Hamilton County. They enforce the statute, they enforce laws, and their head, the sheriff, Jim Hammond, in our case here in Hamilton County, is elected. He's responsive to the people. He serves the people. He's always out at political functions. He has a political and legal duty, and also we could say a military duty. It's paramilitary now to an extent, but it could be military if there is a threat from an evil external force, a threat. He would be the organizer of a defense of the county and its people, its free people. We are called a free people, by the way, in the Tennessee Constitution, and the Constitution promises to deliver us a free state. We have a free state, the free people. But the state itself has made war against us. There has been a revolution within the form. That's a phrase that comes from Garrett's wonderful work. He was an economics writer who was at the elbow of FDR as the welfare warfare state was built, and he wrote, I think in the Saturday Evening Post, month after month, week after week after week, about the developments that destroyed constitutional government and limited government, and gave us the modern total state, which has a biological. You might say it's like a biological need to expand. It can't not expand. I was going to say teleological, but I don't think that's the right word. It's not a teleological need. It is a need from its genes, right? It has a genetic need to expand, and it can't not expand. And yet it has reached the acme, the highest point of its expansion. We are at that very peak now, just before the peak of its expansion, according to some respected authors. Well, this is David Tulis. I do thank you for joining me here at Nooga Radio, and I need to get to my point about another point. I hadn't gotten to my point yet. These are all just prefatory notes, and I do welcome you, by the way. I'm very glad you're here. Thank you for giving me just a couple minutes of your time. Now, the point I want to get to is I was mentioning this whole thing just by the way, because I think we need to think further. I believe we need to think further into the idea of a judgment. We're under a judgment from God, in that we have many rulers. There's a proverb that says, when a land transgresses, it has many rulers, but with a man of understanding and knowledge, its stability will long continue. When we transgress, in other words, when people break God's law, violate God's law, and offend his government, and reject his sovereignty, and claim to be sovereigns of their own, and they in effect are antinomian, they're against law. What you have is a multiplication of judges, rulers, and officials, as the I think the Constitution, or the Declaration of Independence refers to them, officers who sworn us and eat out our substance. That's what's happening today. It's been in process probably since the Constitution was written. That the Constitution, which promises decentralized federal government, but in fact was the vehicle of a revolution against decentralized government among the early colonies, the protean states that became the colonies that became states. We have many officers today, and we do that. We need to understand that's there because God has judged against us. Right? We are evildoers, and so we deserve this judgment. Think of the evils that we can mention here. There are at least 7 that I've made note of. Now, because we have these officers, many of them, we have courts that don't work. We have courts that really don't deliver justice. And when they do, the courts of equity, say Chancery and even Circuit, and even Sessions, which is a small claims court, it's very hard to get justice, and it's extremely expensive. Many cases just can't make it because they're too expensive. There's no alternative. And then Christians who are supposed to have their own. Christians are sort of ordained by St. Paul. And the idea of God's justice and God's desire for there to be peace among people, an easy means of righting wrongs, and an inexpensive way of having many godly judges. And the many godly judges are supposed to be in the church, right? They're supposed to be in the church. There's a passage in 1 Corinthians chapter 6, which I think we'll maybe mention later, that gives this the ordination of a private court system. In fact, we sort of have that. There are some arbitration services downtown. I know this one on the North Shore. I've met the proprietress. I think is a lawyer, female lawyer, I think there's another one on Macaulay. I don't remember the name right offhand, but they allow for non-judicial, effectively private arrangement for solving results. And many contracts nowadays have stipulations that we can't enter into an agreement with you unless you agree to arbitration. And again, that's to avoid the expense and the time commitment and the consumption that goes with the illness that goes with having to litigate a case. And so what I think we have to ask ourselves is, we want a local economy solution to these courts, these state courts in Hamilton County that they don't function according even to their own law. They don't function even under the decrees of the Supreme Court. And the Davis case that I mentioned is written by Mickey Barker, who is a local man. He was for a time the Chief Justice of the Tennessee Supreme Court. Is retired now, I think, on Lookout Mountain. And it's a very detailed, it's a civics lesson all in itself. It's about 25, 30 pages and a single space type, full of citations and very, very rich. It's a rich thing. Your son, if he wants to learn how the world works, should read, and your daughter should read high court opinions, because they explain how things really work, and they explain very many basic concepts. And I will be publishing as soon as I can get some last minute quotes, maybe from Bill Knowles or Jim Coppinger. I've talked with Mike Dunn, the PR man for the county mayor, about Basil Marceau's interest in creating a court that the description of which is given to him by the courts of appeal. The courts of appeal said, well, there has to be a court to hear a trial de novo, and here's what it looks like. And the courts of appeal are quoting Davis. Okay, they quote Davis, and they're telling Basil Marceau, this kind of court can handle your claim. But that court doesn't exist. And Larry Henry, I should have mentioned earlier, Larry Henry says that no one, since he took office in 2014, has asked for a trial de novo. And that, I thought there would be either hundreds of trials de novo or none. I suspected maybe none, and he confirmed it. A lawyer told me there are hundreds, and the lawyer was simply wrong. Larry Henry says that there are no trials de novo. And trials de novo, again, they come out of a negative ruling in circuit court, in sessions court or city court, and they're in circuit. So that means that the jurisdiction in the statute, as the jurisdiction implied in these high court rulings, is civil only. So the question again is for you to think about: why are criminal cases being handled in sessions court? How does a criminal matter start in sessions? Why do citations that officers write start in sessions or city? And the citations, are they civil or are they criminal? If you can be arrested for it, it's criminal. So how is it that these matters that are criminalized by the General Assembly end up in their first legal venue, in a court that has no criminal jurisdiction? This is I'd say this is a staggering question. And it is being asked by a local crank, a local gadfly, Basil Marceau, who gives the impression that he's a little witless sometimes, a little silly, and he has some highfalutin legal talk sometimes, but he's asking a question which is a burr. It is a burr in the pants of the judicial system, and I don't think he's going away. And what I think there are some implications of this claim, which I think are bigger even than that he's pressing, bigger even than the 2001 overturning here in Hamilton County in Chattanooga of the city court and sessions courts fining of people past $50. The $50 rule was reminded of everyone by that ruling. But other things in the Davis case in 2001, other things are there too, including unfinished business. And one bit of unfinished business that the court decided not to deal with. They said there's a clear wrong in this other matter, but we're not going to deal with it now. And it has been unresolved for 16 years. District attorney and their authority to prosecute state crimes. How is it? And the question is, can district attorney prosecute state crimes if the city of Chattanooga and the city of Red Bank, the city of East Ridge, and the city of Soddy Daisy is prosecuting state cases as well? How is it that in those venues, state charges can be prosecuted? Well, I think there may be a compromise about which I'm not sure, but it could be in this direction that the DA will prosecute criminal matters in civil jurisdiction, which poses enormous problems. These are enormous problems, and they have this apparent compromise has been in effect for 16 years in the county. And this criminal defendant in a civil venue, Basil Marceau, is asking, how is that possible? And so you have the babe among us asking questions that are shaking the gray beards, shaking the gray heads of the county and the judicial system. And the babe speaks wisdom, the babe speaks folly. Well, we're going to find out. And what you need to do is keep it tuned here to the David Tulis program and to Nooga Radio. The Nooga Radio is a platform for the man who matters, a platform for the man who wants to know what's really going on. He wants to know what the deep truth is, right? If the deep state is acting, then we'll find out how it works its way out through Nooganomics, our sponsor, and Nooga Radio.
Hot News Talk 1240.
AM 1240 Nooga Radio News. Russell Stroud reporting. County Commission Finance Chairman Tim Boyd has been digging into the records on the Chattanooga Visitors Bureau and has a new recommendation for budget cuts. He recommends that the CVB not exceed 65% of the total hotel-motel tax collected by Hamilton County in one fiscal year. Right now, the CVB gets 100% of that tax, bringing in about $7.1 million for the county portion. He also recommends the agency be subject to the Open Records Act. Meanwhile, Bob Doak, the CVB president and CEO, is going to be making a statement before the commission on Wednesday. Larry Drone takes umbrage with a campaign mailer sent out by Chris Anderson, which he says is libelous. He claims to be depicted supporting Erskine Oglesby's campaign and standing with three other men whom he claims to have never met. He also claims to not have supported Erskine Oglesby's campaign. He said in part, Councilman Anderson's statements are an affront to me and defames my character. Meanwhile, the early voting numbers are in, and they're expected to just barely break 500 votes by the end of the week.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Jim and the folks at Chattanooga Paint and Decorating No Color. They can help you find a cheerful hue for the girls' room, a calming neutral for the kitchen. They can even help you find the right stain and seal for that faded back deck. Jennifer, the interior designer at Chattanooga Paint and Decorating, is ready to listen and provide expert advice. Sure, she can help you find the perfect color for your space, adding beauty and value to your home, but she can also help you plan your project so that you get exactly what you need on your first trip without wasting time or money. Tom, the products expert at Chattanooga Paint and Decorating, knows coatings. He can teach you how to protect your home, your biggest investment. Ready to get started? Visit online at ChattanoogaPaint.com for pro tips and inspiration, or stop by the showroom today, 5529 Hickson Pike. That's 5529 Hickson Pike, across from the Valvoline. Ask for Jim. Tell them David sent you.
I have the best steak selection in town. Name of the business is Don's Meat Shop, and I'm Donnie Raines. Just ask for Donnie. I make over 20 different types of sausages. Most of them are great for grilling. We have the best selection, best quality. We have the hard-to-find items. Don's Meat Shop.
Are you a plumber looking to improve your career? Race Plumbing is looking for you. If you can pass a drug test, have a driver's license, are experienced, and are hardworking, call Ray, 421-6341, 421-6341, 421-6341.
And now to our reporter in the field.
We asked Ray at Ray's Plumbing what's important for homeowners to know.
Some field line systems can cost upwards of $10,000. The bottom line is to save yourself money down the road. I would definitely recommend everybody with a septic that is not on county or city sewer to have an inspection done by a qualified professional. It'd be great if nobody did inspections on them for all plumbing companies. That's what we do to make a living. Not to scare anyone, but it should be in the back of your mind. The danger is the field lines failing and costing thousands upon thousands of dollars and tearing your yard up. By preventative maintenance, you're saving yourself a large headache that may displace yourself and your family. That happens more often than you think. The waste is designed to stay in the tank, and that waste will build up over time. Even with treatment, we have to help that waste break down. Ultimately, preventative maintenance is the key that will keep you from spending $5,000 to $10,000 on replacing your septic system. The bottom line is to save yourself money down the road.
Call Ray at Ray's Plumbing, 421-6341, 421-6341.
Oh, he's got bad breath. And once he slobbered. But your dog's teeth are important for his health. The canine dentist at Wolf Fever has an offer. Listen, ultrasonic cleaning, polishing, x-rays, only $135. Ordinarily, you'd pay $175. For a few days, pay only $135. And get $115 in freebies as a thank you. Grooming, boarding at the inn at Wolf Fever. Act this week. Use anytime this year. Floss and rinse now. 344-1913. WolfTeaver.com.
Final expenses, funeral costs, cemetery lots, unpaid medical bills, probate cost, debts. Debts are due and payable upon death of debtor. Will these costs produce a burden and hardship on your loved ones? Who will be responsible? How will they handle them? These costs can total many thousands of dollars, only compounded greater with the grief of losing a family member. A safe and secure way to provide for these costs is with an affordable life insurance from Covenant Group Insurance and Financial Services. Covenant Group is a local company with local agents. Covenant Group still makes house calls. Covenant Group only represents A-rated companies. With many options to offer, Covenant Group can accommodate almost any budget. Great discounts for good health and plans available for impaired risk. Call today for a free, no-obligation consultation in the convenience of your home. Call Steve or Jada at 423-855-8484. Call today, 423-855-8484.
Need a tiller to get things going for the spring? Spiff up your porch, maybe your deck? Come on by and get a pressure washer at Action Rental. Family in town, need some tables and chairs for an event? Come on by and see us. Action Rental. This is Dan at Action Rental on Lee Highway. Come by and see me. Action Rentals.
Looking good for your Tuesday with lots of sunshine returning. Afternoon highs warming to near 80. Tonight, lows back into the mid and upper 50s. For Wednesday, scattered showers and storms will roll back in. Some of those could be locally strong, highs lower 70s. Much cooler with some showers for Thursday. Chattanooga's best kept secret is at Boyd Speedway. Come see the Dirt Showdown race #1 this Saturday night. Tickets and more at BoydSpeedway.net or Boyd Speedway on Facebook. And I'm Swarsh 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Ward on AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
This is David Tulis, and we are glad you're giving us a couple minutes of your time here at Nooga Radio. Thank you for thinking that we have something to offer, and we do. Now, the idea of liberty is manifold, and we can pursue liberty in many ways. We want liberty. I would define as the absence of external restraint upon what you do. Right? It's not what you think, but what you do. And if we want more liberty because we are chafing under the lack of it in many areas. There are legal ways of obtaining liberty. There are courtroom battles you can have. There are noisy protests you can take part of. You can fight for your rights in court and so on. But in the end, you want to find a way to do it that has less cost, less struggle, less burden. And the way of obtaining an important local liberty for us here in Hamilton County and Chattanooga is one that will maybe surprise you and shock you. And that is buying local in what you eat, taking control of your food, saying no to the agricultural industrial complex. Now, to explore this question of how you do that and why really it might matter is Sara McIntyre of Crabtree Farms. I'm having her in today because there's a plant sale coming up about which you need to know, a plant sale and festival, a wonderful event coming up April 7 and 8 in the from 9 to 3, and the next day, April 9, from 11 to 3. And Sara, what's my listener need to know about this plant sale at Crabtree Farm?
Well, they need to know that it's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It's all day, Friday and Saturday, 9 to 3, and 11 to 3 on Sunday. There, you will be able to buy all the fresh, sustainably grown plant starts that are available both from us and from other vendors. You're also going to meet a bunch of other vendors. So we have pottery, we have other folks doing food, we have live music. It's a lot of fun for the whole family. It's a great way to get out. It's like going to a big park and enjoying it and maybe picking up some food or some new learning as you go. So I want to start today by talking about our plant sale, and I'm going to end today by talking about our plant sale. But in the middle, I want to talk about why we do what we do. You know, you might say, oh, local food, that's such a hippie love fest full of naked star dancing. That's not really true. It can be that. You can choose for it to be that. But what it is it's an interdependence on known persons. When you shop locally, And when you eat locally, you are gaining your independence. You are gaining your interdependence on people that you know. Corporations like to make us feel as though they know us. They like to pretend like they are on our side and that they know what's best for us and they're going to take care of us. But the reality is they're not. They're corporations. They are organizations. They are not people that you know, and they're not actually enriching your local economy. One thing that you do every day, 3 times a day or more, is eat. You eat. You eat breakfast, you eat snack, you eat lunch, you eat dinner. And when you eat that locally, you are engaging in a whole host of relationships. And that's one of the things I want to talk to you about today. So first, let's start about where are we? We are in Chattanooga. We are in the Chattanooga region. We have amazing physical resources right here. We have a wonderful climate. We have great temperatures. We have a long and beautiful, rich history in agricultural traditions and landscapes. And as long as you personally don't depend too heavily on products, as long as you don't buy into things that other people are selling you that they think that you need, then really what you're doing when you're growing your own food or you're asking someone else to grow your food for you is you are using free resources. You're depending on biological waste products like compost and dead stuff. You are relying on the atmosphere and the carbon dioxide and the nitrogen that is available there. You're depending on sunlight. You're looking at water and you're looking at soil. None of these things do I buy from a big box store. All of these things are readily available and abundant right where we live. So when you choose to grow, or if you choose to get to know your farmer, right? You don't have to grow yourself. You can pick somebody else to grow for you. When you do that, you're now talking about your family and you're talking about my family. My family is big and full of people who maybe aren't related to me by blood. There's 10 of us. Your family may also not be completely full of people related to you by blood.
Are you talking about the Crabtree Farm family?
I am talking about the Crabtree Farm family. So you're talking about your family and you're talking about my family. And now we can have a dialogue. You can come to me and I can have a good conversation with you, and I can pay attention to your needs and I can show concern for your concerns, and we can talk about those things that you're concerned about or that you have questions about. It also means that as we're developing this relationship, if something comes up, something happens in your life, I can bring you soup because now I know you and I know what's happening in your life. And maybe you come to me, maybe you help me after a storm or before a big rain. We are developing a personal relationship. This is something that is lacking in our larger scope. This is what lacks when we talk about corporations. Corporations can't build personal relationships with you. They want you to think that they can. They have beautiful advertisements and they're warm and fuzzy and they've got all the music to dress it up, but it's not actually a relationship. So when you make a relationship,
so it's an ersatz and false relationship. It is a kind of pretend relationship.
It's a pretend relationship.
All the real sentiment, if you will, all the real affection is on the side of the consumer.
Absolutely. Well, what they're doing
that would be you.
Is they, I mean, a corporation wants to make money to use it for their own means and ends, and they do that on your back. They do that on my back. And so how do we keep them from doing that? We say no, and we choose something else. So when you make a relationship with me or with another local farmer, you are not only engaging in that relationship 3 times a day, at least. You are increasing your health, which is fantastic. You are saying no to corporations, and you are enriching our local economy. We all do better if our local economy is stronger. So when you pay me money for my food, I then pay other local folk for the products that I need, or I give it to my employees, right? So now there are at least 11 families that are all receiving a small portion of your dollar that you spent at my farm. And they are going to spend their small portion of that dollar here locally as well. So now we're building a local economy where the money is staying here. I'm not paying a big box store. I'm not paying an industrial grocery complex. You're not paying an industrial grocery complex that is going to go and spend your portion of that dollar in China or in New Zealand or in Europe or someplace far, far from you. You are spending that money, and they are spending that money now locally and right here. So from the outside, what does this look like? From the outside, this looks like independence. It looks like regional independence. It looks like Chattanooga. Whoa! News, breaking news. Chattanooga has gone rogue. They are no longer buying from large box stores. They've discovered that they have everything they need at home. Wow. But what it really is, when you're inside, when you're on the inside, like you and I are, is it looks like an interdependence on known persons. I know you, you know me. I know my family, you know your family. I know who I buy things from, you know who you buy things from. We can talk to each other. We know our families, their struggles, their celebrations. This is liberty. This is civic virtue. This is a way to break free.
This is David Tulis, and we're talking with Sara McIntyre of Crabtree Farm. There's a plant sale and festival that she would like you to know about. It's April 7 and 8 at 9 from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. and also April 9. Is that a Friday through Sunday?
It is a Friday through Sunday.
Sarah?
Yes.
And that on the last day, it's 11 a.m. to 3 p.m.
Mhm.
And with Sarah, the question that my listener who's been considering some of these points is this: nationalism and economic nationalism of the Donald Trump variety is a kind of chauvinism. We're not gonna trade with other countries. We want to have it all here. We are somehow better than they, and we're going to isolate ourselves. We're going to restrict ourselves. Is it? And I've heard the attack, the rebukes of economic nationalism and socialism, which are anti-free market in the national context. Is it fair and is it possible to make the same kind of accusation of quote of economic chauvinism in the local economy argument? What do you make of that suggestion?
I don't think so, because what I'm not saying is only buy from a person who looks like this, only buy from a person of this creed, only buy from a person who's been here for X amount of years. I am a transplant. I'm not from Chattanooga originally. What farms do and what personal relationship does is it encourages dialogue. So there's an example in Chattanooga, and Father Peter has this beautiful, beautiful garden. It's a church garden. And he has invited refugees from all over and from his parish to come and garden there. And what that does is it gives those individuals who are thrown into a space that is completely foreign to them, that is America, right? Completely foreign to them. It gives them a space where they have control over something. They can grow a plant. It gives them food and nourishment. Now they can bring something home to their families. And it provides them a space where they can meet other folk who are similar to themselves and different from themselves. So they might be a Turkish refugee and they're meeting an African refugee who's meeting a Chattanoogan native who's meeting a transplant like me, right? So we're all together and we're sharing stories and we're discovering our shared humanity. This is not chauvinism. This is not an extreme isolationism. This is a welcoming of all people from all creeds. You don't have to believe what I believe in order to eat local food. You don't have to worship where someone else worships in order to support the local economy. You don't have to look the way somebody else looks in order to be in community with them. I think this local idea has all the things to do with who is nearby, make of them your brother, and together grow stronger.
And food is the nexus you're suggesting, Sara McIntyre of Crabtree Farms, where that can take place. My listener, though, finds very appealing the national chain store, whether it's Food City or Publix. He finds comfort in the largeness of the chains. Everyone he goes to is the same. He knows where things are. They're very nicely lit, beautiful packaging, and even the vegetables on the vegetable aisles are so nicely placed. They're standing up. The vegetables, the fruit, and everything looks fresh. There's an organic selection, and so the industry of food is trying to accommodate his interest, and yet somehow you're suggesting that that unless he reconsiders from the beginning, he's being led along by continuing to accept, as my listener is want to do, as I want to do, continuing to accept the dealings with national corporations.
I think what the corporations are doing is not playing to our strengths. I think what the corporations are doing is playing to our shared fears. We all have an innate fear of difference. And so you walk into a store that's not a big box store, it feels different. It looks different. The people inside are different. You may have to go about your transaction differently. There may be different accents involved and different folk involved. This is okay. This is in fact good. This is in fact what our country was founded on, right? This is community, and community can be hard, and community can be scary, and community can be uncomfortable. But as you step into that place of discomfort, what you find is loving open arms. What you find is other people who have also stepped into that place of discomfort and are there to welcome you and support you. Are you going to find that in a big box store? No. You keep your fear. You walk in. It makes you feel safe because it's similar and it's something that is known. But do they embrace you? No. They just sell you things. They sell you repackaged goods. They sell you byproducts. They sell you false nutrition. They're not selling you community. They're not building your local economy. They're not helping to make sure that when things go wrong, there's somebody standing next to you.
What is the experience that my listener has or could have if he goes to a farmer's market? What is the social flavor?
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. It's different. It can be nervous because you're going to talk to strangers, but it's a lot of fun. So basically, it's a bunch of folk who get together with their vans and their tables and their tents, and we put out what we have. You know, that's my side of it. Hey, this is what I've got. This is how much it costs. Here I am. I'll answer any questions you have. Do you know what this is? That's okay. Do you know how to cook it? That's cool. I'll tell you how to cook it. But then there are a whole bunch of other folk like you who show up and are like, oh my goodness, I don't know how to do this. That's all right. Bring your credit card. We have credit card machines. Bring your cash. People take cash. Bring your check.
They
People
prefer
take
cash,
checks.
probably,
We
right?
do
They
prefer
cash.
We do, because 3% otherwise goes away from us, right? It goes out of our pocket for your convenience. That's okay for your convenience. If you're coming to us and you're willing to buy directly from us, I will give up 3% for you. But when you're there, what you're going to be forced to do is talk to a human. There's no self-checkout, right? You have to pick your produce. You have to talk to us. You don't have to be chatty. It's okay. I know some of you are introverts. I'm an introvert. You don't want to be chatty and like tell everybody your life story. A smile, a thank you, a handing off, a question. That's it. That's all you really have to do.
I think the farmer's market satisfies a social interest, Sara McIntyre, that you can't, it's really impossible to have in a store, even though there are people waiting in line possibly at the Aldi. In a farmer's market, you are much more willing to open up and just to stand around and chat, whereas when you're in the store, you're always paying attention to the clock and your other obligations, which are certainly legitimate. They're legitimate obligations, but at a farmer's market, somehow those things recede into the background, in a wonderful, poetic way.
Yeah, they melt away, and you begin to feel relaxed. You begin to feel home. You begin to feel a sense of tribe. Everything that's been buzzing in your head as you pulled up in your car and zipped into your parking spot and spilled out of your car begins to shed as you take those steps into this older time, this known marketplace.
Well, Sara, tell my listener what he and his family might expect if they stop in at the plant sale and festival at Crabtree Farms, the inner city farm, right?
Yeah,
where is it? How do you find it?
Just so if you think about I-24, in between 27 and 75, there's a short bit right there, right, that terminates in the ridge cut. We are before the ridge cut on the 27 side. You take the second exit for Rossville Boulevard. It's 180B. You take Rossville Boulevard south. You travel 3 blocks from the exit, and there's a big yellow Tienda El Aguila building. That's 30th Street. They haven't put up my street sign. I wish that they would put back my street sign. But they haven't put up the street sign that says 30th Street, but it's right after 29th Street. It's 30th Street. And usually there's a little brown Crabtree Farm sign right there, but when they did road work, they didn't put that back up either. You turn right. The only direction you can turn on 30th Street, you follow it all the way down, and there we are, an oasis of happiness. So the spring plant sale, Friday, April 7th, is from 9 to 3. That's only our plants. Come on out. April 8th is a Saturday, 9 to 3, and April 9th is a Sunday, 11 to 3. Those times you can come out. You can buy plants from us. You can also see Two Angels Mushroom Farms, Down to Earth, Eden Thistle, Garden Chick, Trailhead Nursery, Chattanooga Holistic Medicine, doTERRA, Inspire Chiropractic, Kitchen Witch and Herbals, Michelle's Herbal Products, White Ivy Farm. There's face painting, there's pottery, there's Mudslingers Pottery, there's a rummage sale.
All 3 days, this last list?
Saturday and Sunday. There is food from Plus Coffee, Blue Indian Kombucha, Silvera's Catering and Bakery, Southern Squeeze Juice. There's also live music from Dynamite Holler, the Tin Cup Rattlers, and Laura Walker. In addition, we have free workshops on the hour Saturday and Sunday. This is a wonderful place to go. You're meeting real craftsmen who really care about their products, and you're talking directly to them.
Now, you, my listener, your wife might want to care. Tell her that if she wants to know what a CSA is, she can come to the Crabtree Farms Plant Sale and Festival. What is a CSA, and how can my listener and his family get involved?
A CSA
Sarah?
is a farm share agreement wherein you pay us some portion of your grocery money, and then we give you a weekly share or a bi-weekly share, $25 of farm fresh produce picked for you that day or the day before and delivered to one of 3 spaces where you can pick it up and bring it home to your family.
Where are those places?
You can come on Wednesday to the Main Street Farmers Market on Main Street, just past, it's in Architectural Services parking lot. You can come on Friday to Chattanooga Holistic Medicine, which is on the North Shore right across from Erlanger, or you can come on Saturday to our farm and you can pick up your produce there directly from our barn with our farmers nearby. This
is David Tulis, the editor. I'm the editor of Nooganomics.com, and I care a lot about spelling the word. There's a two-letter word that's often misspelled, and it's misspelled O-N. And the idea is getting on, going along, just going with the flow. But I say spell it correctly, and it's no. And so we say no to the popular nostrums of the day. Many of them, I say they're nostrums, but they're really unspoken. And that is that far is better than near, that big is better than small, and that complex is better than simple. And down in the footnotes where the good people will fight you, the marketing departments will fight you in 5-point type. And you'll have to get your reading glasses on because you, my listener, have that one gray eyebrow here, and you need to go ahead and pluck that. You got those glasses on? Okay, you can read it. It says corporate is better than personal, they say. And they say that abstract is better than physical. And I say not getting on with that. No, we've had enough of that. Let's say no. And let's think in terms of local economy. Let's think in terms of local food. Do you agree with that, Sarah?
I absolutely agree.
Yeah. Okay, so think about mark Crabtree Farm and mark either of these dates, April 7, 8, or 9. Any one of those days, go and meet Sara McIntyre and her whole crew. This is David Tulis. Sarah, thanks very much. Sara McIntyre is from Crabtree Farms. Just look it up online. And
crabtreefarms.org.
Crabtree Farms with an S, plural, .org. crabtreefarms.org. This is David Tulis, and I have got some very, very important messages I want you to consider. And think about this. Support my advertisers and support this station, your commercial Nooga radio station.
Hot News Talk 1240.
iBuyChattanoogaHouses.com, Chattanooga's premier house buyer. Do you have a house you need to sell fast? We are buying. Call us today. We are local folks. We will buy your house as is, no repairs needed. We will give you a cash offer and close on the day of your choice. Call us right now, 423-834-7321. Need to sell a house fast? We are buying. Are you experiencing one of these situations? Inherited a house you have no need for? Behind on your property taxes? Nightmare tenants making your life miserable? Too many repairs needed and don't have a desire to fix? Behind on payments and facing foreclosure? Recently divorced and need a way out of the house? Never really wanted to be a landlord and just want to cash out? Trying to relocate and need to sell your house? Do you need to sell a house fast? We are buying. No fees, no hassles, no repair cost. Close on the day of your choice. Our process is simple. Call us today. We inspect your property right away. We make you a fair cash offer. We close on the day of your choice. Call us today, 423-834-7321. Visit our website, iBuyChattanoogaHouses.com. Call us today, 423-834-7321. iBuyChattanoogaHouses.com.
Need a tiller to get things going for the spring? Spiff up your porch, maybe your deck? Come on by and get a pressure washer at Action Rental. Family in town need some tables and chairs for an event? Come on by and see us. Action Rental. This is Dan at Action Rental on Lee Highway. Come by and see me. Action Rentals.
If I'm the city's most intelligent man, it's because I take 2 shots of Mind Enhancement Complex every day. Nature's Finest keeps me stocked with my mainstay, Formula 4. That's where I start. Formula 4. Industrial farming, soil depletion, mineral empty foods. I just say no. Ask about supplements, health, stamina, circulation, heart, prostate under control. Get the Nooga Radio David Tulis freebie. Save $2 on every 5, 20% off. Nooga Radio, Lee Highway, nature's finest.
I have the best steak selection in town. The name of the business is Don's Meat Shop, and I'm Donnie Raines. Just ask for Donnie. I make over 20 different types of sausages. Most of them are great for grilling. We have the best selection, best quality. We have the hard-to-find items. Don's Meat Shop.
Here comes the bride, here comes the bride. She's walking down the street.
And she's wearing a stunning diamond ring that's a fraction of the cost that her man would have paid at one of those overpriced mall jewelry stores. Rick Davis has a plethora on quality diamonds and gold rings, and he wants to pass the savings on to you. Did I say plethora? How about overabundance? That's right, an overabundance of gold and diamonds. So before you decide to get crazy and pay full retail on an overpriced piece of jewelry from one of those cookie-cutter mall jewelry stores, come on out and see Rick Davis Gold and Diamonds. Top quality gold and diamonds at a fraction of the cost. Intermarital bliss with an engagement and wedding ring from Rick Davis. Hey, he'll also buy your gold and diamonds with cash, and more cash. Rick Davis Gold and Diamonds, Brainerd Road, Chattanooga. And there goes another happy bride.
Are you shovel ready to build a house, but you're not a builder? Are you shovel ready? Michael's Homes is ready to bulldoze its way to a solution for you. You have ideas on what you want in a house, but you're looking for someone to bring your ideas into a plan and turn your plan into a house. Michael's Homes, custom builder. Michael's Homes has lots available at a new subdivision. River Bay Estates, that's Harrison. Maybe River Watch in Saudi Daisy. Choices galore, lots, houses, beautiful homes all over Chattanooga. The Canyons, Hickson. Crystal Brook, Appison. Drive in, take a look, consult with us. We build on your lot or ours. Homes-Chattanooga.com.
Call 423-413-9929.
Truex Jr. is off the pace and he is headed to the pit lane. Elliott Powers around the outside. Michael McDowell pops a right front tire. Here's Martin Truex to the bottom. Blaney blocks him off too. Meanwhile, Chase Elliott went 4 wide on the back straightaway. They're side by side for the lead.
Here at Live on Chattanooga's official NASCAR radio station.
Hot News Talk 1240.
The voice of NASCAR.
Get back there, you dang Yankee! Great horny toads, I'm up north. Gotta burn my boots, they touched Yankee soil. Lay down your arms and step forward, Yankee!
What's the hassle, schmassel?
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
WSDT Sunny Daisy. CBS News, I'm Frank Settapani. Republican conservatives who scuttled a bill to repeal and replace Obamacare are considering a revised plan. CBS News correspondent Stephen Portnoy.
Emerging from a late-night huddle with Vice President Pence, members of the House Freedom Caucus signaled a deal is close.
We're hopeful that we'll get the legislative text within the next 24 hours.
Mark Meadows, who chairs the Freedom Caucus, says the vice president offered a solid idea to allow states to opt out of the coverage requirements set by the Obamacare law. Conservatives say doing away with those provisions would lower premiums for most, but it could also stand to make insurance more expensive for those who depend on it most. Stephen Portnoy, CBS News, the White House.
On Capitol Hill, Senate debate is about to begin on the Supreme Court nomination of federal appeals judge Neil Gorsuch. Republicans hope to confirm Gorsuch by Friday, even if that means changing Senate rules to break a Democratic filibuster. Time Magazine White House correspondent Zeke Miller says a failed filibuster could put the Democrats in a bind.
2 years from now, when the next Supreme Court nominee comes up, they're giving up a whole lot of leverage, and that could be a very big problem for Democrats and will really change the dynamic in Washington.
The government is reminding employers to dot the I's and cross the T's before hiring foreign workers. CBS's Vicki Barker has that.
The Justice Department Civil Rights Division says it will investigate and prosecute any employers who overlook qualified American applicants. Now, the Obama administration sued companies over working visa issues, too. But this represents a ramping up of vigilance and enforcement aimed at keeping Americans first in line for jobs.
The State Department says the United States will end its support for the UN Population Fund. A State Department letter to the Senate says the fund supports forced abortions in China. A Syrian opposition group claims that a poison gas attack by Syrian or Russian planes killed 58 people, including 11 children. A Syrian government official disputes the account. CBS's Holly Williams is following the story from Istanbul, Turkey.
Some of the videos emerging from Syria today, and there are a lot of these videos, certainly suggest that some kind of chemical agent was used against civilians, including children. One of them shows you a line of apparently dead bodies, all of them infant children, just lying there lifeless.
To St. Petersburg, Russia now, where CBS's Elizabeth Palmer has the latest on the suspect in yesterday's subway bombing.
He's actually been named now. He's Akbarjan Jalilov, and he was named by the security services of a small republic called Kyrgyzstan. It lies south of Russia near the Afghan border, and that's where Jalilov was born in 1995.
Authorities suspect he had ties to Islamic radicals. The bombing killed 14 people. Southern storms since the weekend have taken 5 lives, and forecasters are calling for a new round of violent weather tomorrow. In early Wall Street trading, the Dow Industrials are down 17 points. This is CBS News.
Forget all these formulated, extruded, processed cereal bits. With just the raw meat and the eggs and the Dinovite and Super Omega, it's unbelievable.
Order a 90-day supply of Dinovite for your dog this week.
We'll send you a bottle of Super Omega fish oil free.
Packed with omega-3, DHA, and EPA fatty acids.
Super Omega is great for your dog's immune system, healthy skin, and soft, shiny fur.
Try Super Omega fish oil.
Free this week at Dinovite.com.
DINOVITE.com.
Hiring is the most challenging part of my job.
We started using ZipRecruiter about 3 months ago. One click and my job was posted to 200 plus job boards, all the top sites.
All of the candidates came to my dashboard, and it's easy to compare them.
And I couldn't believe the number of great applicants we got. I don't know how we hired before ZipRecruiter.
Find the best candidates with ZipRecruiter, where your job is just one click away from 200 plus job sites. And right now you can try ZipRecruiter free. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/radio offer. That's ZipRecruiter.com/radio offer.
An upstart car company has zoomed past one of the industry's proudest names. CBS's Jim Shenevy has the story.
Tesla, the maker of exotic electric cars, has now passed Ford Motor Company as far as stock market value. Tesla shares gained 7.25% yesterday to a total market capitalization of $48.7 billion, becoming the number 2 automaker behind General Motors in investor value. And Elon Musk's company is hanging around in the passing lane and gaining on number 1 GM, which is worth roughly $51.2 billion. Wall Street has been thumbs down on traditional auto stocks, with the established companies forced to use discounts to sell their cars as their inventories grow. Jim Shenevy, CBS News.
A ticket for a faulty brake light is the least of a Pennsylvania man's problems. Police who stopped him say they spotted a 6-year-old child in the car, along with what appeared to be a mobile methamphetamine laboratory and a burn mark and other evidence of a previous explosion. Frank Stettapani, CBS.
AM 1240 Nooga Radio News. Russell Stroud reporting. County Commission Finance Chairman Tim Boyd has been digging into the records on the Chattanooga Visitors Bureau and has a new recommendation for budget cuts. He recommends that the CVB not exceed 65% of the total hotel-motel tax collected by Hamilton County in one fiscal year. Right now, the CVB gets 100% of that tax, bringing in about $7.1 million for the county portion. He also recommends the agency be subject to the Open Records Act. Meanwhile, Bob Doak, the CVB president and CEO, is going to be making a statement before the commission on Wednesday. Larry Drone takes umbrage with the campaign mailer sent out by Chris Anderson, which he says is libelous. He claims to be depicted supporting Erskine Oglesby's campaign and standing with 3 other men whom he claims to have never met. He also claims to not have supported Erskine Oglesby's campaign. He said in part, Councilman Anderson's statements are an affront to me and defames my character. Meanwhile, the early voting numbers are in, and they're expected to just barely break 500 votes by the end of the week.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Looking good for your Tuesday with lots of sunshine returning. Afternoon highs warming to near 80 tonight. Lows back into the mid and upper 50s. For Wednesday, scattered showers and storms will roll back in. Some of those could be locally strong. Highs lower 70s. Much cooler with some showers for Thursday. Chattanooga's best kept secret is at Boyd Speedway. Come see the Dirt Showdown Race #1 this Saturday night. Tickets and more at BoydSpeedway.net or Boyd Speedway on Facebook. And I'm Swarsheen 12. Chief Meteorologist Patrick Ward. On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's David Tulis.
The news cycle in Chattanooga and Helena County today suggests that Tim Boyd, Commissioner, representative of the people, is again walking his normal gait, not tiptoeing as he did late last week when he was being threatened by a letter from the attorney hired by the Convention Visitors Bureau to not reveal confidential information. That was the threat. It was a vague threat that, as I note today at Nooganomics.com, has no basis in the statute, the Open Records Statute, which is an unconstitutional machinery to allow for state secrets in Tennessee. The longest part of that statute is the list. It goes on for pages of exemptions. The list of exemptions that says that this group and that group and these circumstances and this type of material and that type of material cannot be granted open records request. In other words, if you, my listener, file an open records request to find out about the spending, the lavish dinners, the hotel outlays, the media outlays, the favors granted by the CVB for its friends in the way of advertising, John Kinsey, for example, the developer, he gets apparently good play in advertising programs run by the CVB. His properties get good play, one report said. Then you have a records request for that, and if you are listed in the exemptions provisions, you are not under obligation to give the record out to you or to me, the member of the public, the member of the press, say, filing an open records request. Now, one way of finding out a record is just walk into an office and say, I want to see the records. I want to see your tax returns. I want to see everything as a member of the public. Now, the CVB is a 501c4. It is a lobbying organization. It is not tax exempt, though it is right next to the 501c3 tax exempt provisions in the Internal Revenue Code. It is a group that receives about $7 or $8 million in tax money every year. These funds are paid by visitors who paid the very, very steep tax for hotel visitors. And is Mr. Whitaker right? Philip Whitaker, his name is Philip Whitaker, the attorney for the CVB. Is he right in his threats? And I suggest that no, he's not. And here's why: confidentiality does not apply to Tim Boyd. It does not apply to him. It doesn't apply to me. I'm not bound by confidentiality rules. Neither is he. Neither is John Wilson. Neither is Dave Flessner at the Chattanooga Times Free Press. Neither Judy Walker there, nor Chloe Morrison at Nooga.com. All the high and mighty and important, very valuable media outlets here in Chattanooga. Nor TV3, right? TV3, TV9, TV12. 12 being our CBS radio, we're the affiliates through CBS with that TV station. They're not bound by the confidentiality rules. Well, the only person bound by the law is the custodian of the record. That person is under orders, right? And being listed in the exemptions provision of the Open Records statute, if he's listed there, he is under a duty to keep the record confidential. In other words, he can't give it out. But once you get it, well, if you're a member of the media, you're a public official, once you get it, you're not bound by that confidentiality. It doesn't apply to you. It only applies to people who are the custodians. Just think of it this way. Think of a stop sign. Okay, here's a way of looking at whether a law applies to you or not. And I'm suggesting Tim Boyd's not bound by the confidentiality rules, despite what Attorney Philip Whitaker says on these grounds. Okay, let's say you're in Red Bank, you've got Dayton Boulevard, and there's a little street, Livonia Street. That was where when I was a boy, my dad and mom had a house there. All right, Livonia Street has a stop sign, and it's kind of a downhill street coming to Dayton Boulevard. Is the stop sign binding upon whom? Well, okay, so let's say you're leaving a house there on that street, and you come to the stop sign, and you stop, and you look left and you look right. Okay, notice the stop sign is red right in front of you. Now, are you bound by the stop sign? The answer is yes. Okay, now let's say there's another party on the main drag, and that party is making a left turn from Dayton Boulevard into Livonia Street. Well, okay, he's got his lights flashing, left turn. He's making the turn. Okay, he's crossing over the opposing lane and enters Livonia Street. He sees the sign, right? He sees the sign as he passes by, and he notices there's a car waiting to exit that road to enter the main thoroughfare. Now, the man making the turn, is he bound by the sign even though he sees it? No, he's not. It doesn't apply to him. It only applies to the people who are in the purview of that sign, who are in the, you might say, the line of sight, the scope of vision of that sign. That sign is aiming at and directed to people who are coming down Livonia Street, coming down the hill, and coming to the main thoroughfare to make a left or right turn. It binds only them, not anybody else. Okay, so people can see the sign, but it doesn't apply to them unless they're in that position, right? So only the two people are seeing the sign, but it applies only to one of them. That's what's happening in the Tim Boyd story, and he has nothing to worry about. There is no criminal penalty in the statute, and there's no tort. There's no tort for him last week to have said, Dave Flester, he had apparently a long meeting with the Chattanooga Times Free Press editorial chiefs. There was no wrong for him to say, I've got 2 reams of copies here. Do you want to just run it through the copier while I'm waiting, while we're talking about this situation for some coverage? No, there's no wrong there. He can go ahead and do that. Dave Flestner's committing no crime, imposing no tort on anyone to take the CVB's financials, the auditing material, which are protected, right? They are protected by the statute, but the statute doesn't apply to these people. Why? Because they're the members of the public. They're the press, and they are free to do with it what they want. So once they get it, they're not bound by confidentiality rules. And Tim Boyd, I suspect, given today's coverage at Chattanooga, for example, and other media platforms, he is standing on his own 2 feet, and he is declaring that these people are overpaid, and he is proposing that they face some restrictions in their outlays. Now, internships are important. I want to mention Crabtree Farms has an internship for people, young people who want to get a sense of how a farm like that works. It is a business. I believe it's a nonprofit business, but there is Crabtree Farms does offer internships during the spring, summer, and fall, and they're really a good way of gaining real-world experience in agriculture and nonprofit administration. Sara McIntyre says there are 10 or 11 families that are connected with that organization, and she says we can tailor an internship focus to meet the needs and interests of the intern or the school. And for students, college credit can be made available by arrangement. So that's something if you're interested in agriculture. What about if you, my listener, have a son or a daughter interested in the media? Well, I'm interested in a young man being an intern for me. Now, you can find out more about what I expect as the owner and host and journalist from an intern. And if you go to Nooganomics.com, you can read more about this expectation. And in a nutshell, the thing that you learn is how to think in terms of the marketplace, how to think in terms of revealing the truth, arguing for the truth by reporting facts, and then also reporting arguments. Now, I have a definite bias as a writer. My bias is always constitutional government, liberty, and I would say God and His revelation is a bias I have, but that doesn't mean I can't report accurately and truly and neutrally about a conflict. So when I cover news, for example, I'm working on a story about the court system and about a local case. Well, I'm covering it objectively, though I have a clear sympathy in some of the way I present the story for some of the claims being made by one side, right? So I'm quoting accurately the other side. Why would I quote someone who, let's say, is against me? Let's say a gay activist, right? Why would I quote a gay activist accurately and reflect his position in the most favorable light in my news account? Well, I do that because of grace, right? Grace is what you give to all people, especially to your enemies. So if you're writing a story about a bad official, right? Let's say an official who's harassing someone. Let's say Dwayne Land in Dunlap, and the Chancery Court judge, which is waiting to imprison a couple who refused to allow for an inspection of their house under administrative claims. There is no, just by the way, there is no administrative authority for a search. It has to be a criminal warrant to obtain a search. But here is the town hounding Thomas and Carol Gaddy, who have fled a bench warrant for their arrest on grounds of contempt. If I'm going to quote the judge or quote the mayor or quote anybody, I'll quote them accurately and as fully as possible to show their perspective in my account. So that's what I do as a journalist. But more than that, a journalist here and an intern would learn about the radio business, learn about the multimedia business. And as I say, the journalist would take over and work for me. And he's not having to pay me to do this. Okay. He's not having to pay me for his education. He would take over the operation of Nooganomics.com. The website for The Man Who Matters would be eventually a contributor and handle some of the administration and handle the marketing of our ideas. In other words, getting our ideas out to more people. We want more people rather than fewer to understand what we say and to encounter our arguments for a local economy and the free market, to encounter them in new ways, more and more people all the time. And so my go to Nooganomics.com and read what he learns. He learns, for example, that you find evidence of corruption in the record, right? It's always in the record. It's not done in cash, really. It's done by alliance and by contract. You learn that. You learn about constitutional government. You learn some of the major goals of the free market. And you do that by just having interactions with the people here at this multimedia platform, Nooga Radio. We are everywhere, by the way. We are on all the platforms. And you can encounter me here on the air, on Real Radio. You can encounter me on Facebook at the Nooga Radio channel, and also at YouTube. Nooganomics.com is where I write, and sometimes I write for other platforms and hope to influence the readers there and to let them know, hey, there's an alternative platform making a terrific argument for constitutional government and the free market. And then, of course, there's dealing with our intern become owner, right? Intern come owner. And that's Russell Stroud, our news director. He is a perfect picture of what an apprenticeship is. He's making his living in business, in our media platform. He's a student, but he's becoming essential to the operation. And that's what you want to be as an apprentice. You want to become essential to the operation. And he's going to become an owner, right? And that's something that you just can't imagine the benefit of that. Here's this man from the poor family, going to be, he'll be worth $500,000 in a couple of years, Lord willing. And how is that? Well, he worked his way into ownership by serving me, David Tulis, your host here at the David Tulis program, and serving Mike Steele, our principal partner, and taking part in the perils and tribulations of being a small business with a big footprint, right? We're a small business, but we have a gigantic influence. I would say a large footprint. So think about Crabtree Farms if you want to have a son or daughter going into, or a son or daughter of a friend, or maybe someone at church, Crabtree Farms, an internship in the agricultural and nonprofit administration sector, or here at Nooga Radio, as an assistant to me. And because this person is my personal assistant, I would say it has to be a fellow. I would not be interested in having a female constantly in my presence. I think there's a problem there. And if you want to know what the reasoning is, just look at the story in the news cycle about Vice President Mike Pence and his wife. He won't eat out with any female. Right? If he's eating somewhere, he's not eating alone with a female. It's with his wife. Okay, that is where I'm coming from as well. It's a traditional and Christian perspective on this kind of union. And there's confusion, there's temptation for a strong and active man like me to be constantly around an attractive young female intern. That's a problem because I'm a sinner, right? I'm a sinner, and I don't want to have that temptation. So I would say an intern for me has to be of the male sex, right? Not the male gender, the male sex. Now, about conservatives, we are tired of conservatives. And we're tired of libertarians. And why do we say conservatives, we're fed up with them? Well, one reason is that they're bankrupt. And they're bankrupt because they want tyrannies. They want despotisms. For example, as Jeffrey Tucker points out in a very fine little essay from a couple years ago that I was rereading this morning, pointing out that in the first 100 years of our federal empire, there were no limits at all on the movement of people. These came really much later, serving union interests, serving political interests to block people. And now the national power spends $18 billion a year on stopping immigration. That's more federal law enforcement for that one effort than any other, than all the other so-called enforcement agencies combined in Yankeedom. The money is spent to stop people from exchanging labor for money, right? You want to stop them from coming here to exchange labor for money. That the whole thing is a massive flop is revealed by the fact that there are 11 million people in the country illegally, so-called. Conservatives are bankrupt because they want to stop. They want a wall. They want to stop the free movement of people. They want to stop the inmixing of people, and that's a problem. And this is David Tulis, and caller, you're live on the David Tulis program. What great insight do you have to offer the other listeners to this show?
I love you, David, but on this issue, you do not know what you're talking about. They're illegal. They're not supposed to be here. We have a right to have borders. Yesterday at Walmart, I was behind a woman. She looked like she was about 15, and she already popped out her second little baby. And the third one was on the way with Mama behind her. Looked like they were from Mexico. Not sure, but certainly had an accent. And then, oddly enough, she pulled out not only a food stamp card, but a WIC card. Now, do you want to pay for that? They're here illegally. They need to go back. You cannot make a legal argument.
Look, the welfare system, Mike, the welfare system is not mine. I'm not paying for the welfare system, okay? Even if I'm a federal taxpayer, I'm not paying for the system. No, I'm not.
You buy gas,
it doesn't belong to me.
You buy is taxed, and you're paying for it. And you're also paying for it through inflation because the Federal Reserve, $20 trillion in debt.
That's those are violations of the listener, Mike. That's not something I'm doing. You can't lay to me and to the listener.
The country has a right to make laws. Yeah, let me bring this to a logical conclusion. If you just let anybody come in, just let them walk in. Then let the Chinese just walk in with their troops.
Come on, that's different. We're talking about harmless civilians with their children and their cars of personal property.
Are they guaranteed all the rights under the Constitution once they hit our shores? Yes or no?
Yes.
So if Chinese troops came in dressed in civilian garb, they unload their carrier, they have a right to go buy guns, right?
Okay, Mike, this is a preposterous premise to begin with, okay? It's beneath you. It's beneath you.
Logical conclusion. That's why liberals fail on talk radio and they fail in general.
Well, let me ask you this, Mike. You're a defender. Right, Mike, you're a defender of the wall. All right, let me ask you this.
Here's the deal, and I'm going.
Go ahead.
I'm a private pilot. I will volunteer my time to fly them over Mexico and kick them in their asses out of the plane with or without a parachute.
All right. Well, listen. Let me ask you this: Do you want in a caller hung up on David Tulis? I'm shocked. But Mike and the other conservatives, whom we have enough we really just have enough of these bankrupt conservatives. You know what they want? They want a national ID. They want national work permits. They want nonstop surveillance. They want harassment of all businesses. Your papers, please culture. They want the Real ID Act that we have here. They want a national ID. Why? So we can keep people from working in the official economy if they don't have the proper papers. They have to have a driver's license. They have to have an EIN or an SSN. They have to, if they're foreigners, they have to show the proper papers. We want to have an official economy. We want a controlled economy, and we want mass deportations. We want to be able to have people who've lived here, raised children here, run businesses here to be instantly deported if they're found by the ICE people to be here without the proper papers. You know, I'm a person who believes that no one should have papers. I don't believe in documented and undocumented Americans. I think everybody should be undocumented. I believe everybody should be people who are living in their natural persons, in their flesh, and do not have avatar. The avatar is the creation of the credit economy. It is the creation it is an artificial legal creation with which you deal with government, or rather, by which government has its hands on you and controls you. And same with corporations. Look at the styling of all correspondence that comes from credit card issuers, insurance companies, and government. They're dealing not with the flesh and blood person, but with the avatar. I think we should not have avatars. I think we should not have documents. I think if we are innocent people living our lives harmlessly and innocently and innocuously, meaning harming no one, harmlessly, we should be free to come and go as we please across any border. Why do we have borders? Well, we have them because we have nation states. And we have nation states because we reject the idea of self-government, and we reject the idea of personal government. I like the idea of much smaller countries in the vein of Rudolf Kohr, the German free market so-called anarchist philosopher. He said small is better. And in fact, the whole small is better movement came from him. He says big nations always cause trouble. Big nations are warlike. I prefer smaller nations. And as Sara McIntyre of Crabtree Farm suggested, we can have independence. We can have independence as an independent city-state, self-directing, if we think in terms of local economy and the free market, especially thinking in terms of local food. Now, local food, find out more about that at the plant sale and festival at Crabtree Farms, April 7, 8, and 9. David Tulis here. David Tulis.
Fox News Talk 1240.
AM 1240 Nooga Radio News. Russell Stroud reporting. County Commission Finance Chairman Tim Boyd has been digging into the records on the Chattanooga Visitors Bureau and has a new recommendation for budget cuts. He recommends that the CVB not exceed 65% of the total hotel-motel tax collected by Hamilton County in one fiscal year. Right now, the CVB gets 100% of that tax, bringing in about $7.1 million for the county portion. He also recommends the agency be subject to the Open Records Act. Meanwhile, Bob Doak, the CVB president and CEO, is going to be making a statement before the commission on Wednesday. Larry Groen takes umbrage with the campaign mailer sent out by Chris Anderson, which he says is libelous. He claims to be depicted supporting Erskine Oglesby's campaign and standing with three other men whom he claims to have never met. He also claims to not have supported Erskine Oglesby's campaign. He said in part, Councilman Anderson's statements are an affront to me and defames my character. Meanwhile, the early voting numbers are in, and they're expected to just barely break 500 votes by the end of the week.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
I have the best steak selection in town. The name of the business is Don's Meat Shop, and I'm Donnie Raines. Just ask for Donnie. I make over 20 different types of sausages. Most of them are great for grilling. We have the best selection, best quality. We have the hard-to-find items. Don's Meat Shop.
Are you a plumber looking to improve your career? Ray's Plumbing is looking for you. If you can pass a drug test, have a driver's license, are experienced, and are hardworking, call Ray, 421-6341, 421-6341, 421-6341.
And now to our reporter in the field.
We asked Ray at Ray's Plumbing what's important for homeowners to know.
Some field line systems can cost upwards of $10,000. The bottom line is to save yourself money down the road. I would definitely recommend everybody with a septic that is not on county or city sewer to have an inspection done by a qualified professional. It'd be great if nobody did inspections on them for all plumbing companies. That's what we do to make a living. Not to scare anyone, but it should be in the back of your mind. The danger is the field lines failing and costing thousands upon thousands of dollars and tearing your yard up. By preventative maintenance, you're saving yourself a large headache that may displace yourself and your family. That happens more often than you think. The waste is designed to stay in the tank, and that waste will build up over time. Even with treatment, we have to help that waste break down. Ultimately, preventative maintenance is the key that will keep you from spending $5,000 to $10,000 on replacing your septic system. The bottom line is to save yourself money down the road.
Call Ray at Ray's Plumbing, 421-6341, 421-6341.
Oh, he's got bad breath. And once he slobbered. But your dog's teeth are important for his health. The canine dentist at Wolf Fever has an offer. Listen, ultrasonic cleaning, polishing, x-rays, only $135. Ordinarily, you'd pay $175. For a few days, pay only $135. And get $115 in freebies as a thank you. Grooming, boarding at the inn at Wolf Fever. Act this week. Use anytime this year. Floss and rinse now. 344-1913. WolfTeaver.com.
Final expenses, funeral cost, cemetery lots, unpaid medical bills, probate cost, debts. Debts are due and payable upon death of debtor. Will these costs produce a burden and hardship on your loved ones? Who will be responsible? How will they handle them? These costs can total many thousands of dollars, only compounded greater with the grief of losing a family member. A safe and secure way to provide for these costs is with an affordable life insurance from Covenant Group Insurance and Financial Services. Covenant Group is a local company with local agents. Covenant Group still makes house calls. Covenant Group only represents A-rated companies. With many options to offer, Covenant Group can accommodate almost any budget. Great discounts for good health and plans available for impaired risk. Call today for a free, no-obligation consultation in the convenience of your home. Call Steve or Jada at 423-855-8484. Call today, 423-855-8484.
Need a tiller to get things going for the spring? Spiff up your porch, maybe your deck? Come on by and get a pressure washer at Action Rental. Family in town, need some tables and chairs for an event? Come on by and see us. Action Rental. This is Dan at Action Rental on Lee Highway. Come by and see me. Action Rentals.
Amigos Mexican Restaurant in Hickson, featuring our NASCAR Natty Light for only $2.25 all day during the Sprint Cup race. That's right, all day during the race. Enjoy a cool, crisp, refreshing brew. Natty Light, just $2.25. Also choose from a wide variety of other beverages on tap or in the bottle. Amigos, between Hobby Lobby and Staples in Hickson. Amigos Mexican Restaurant, a real homemade taste of Mexico. And Natty Light for only $2.25 during the Sprint Cup race. A festive atmosphere, great service and prices, a fantastic taste. Always fresh, never frozen. Stay cool, quench your thirst at happy hour, 9 to 3 today and every day, featuring huge drink specials at Amigos. Take the table next to mine. We'll enjoy the Sprint Cup race on huge flat screen TVs with friends and family. See you here at the Cantina. Amigos.
Looking good for your Tuesday with lots of sunshine returning. Afternoon highs warming to near 80. Tonight, lows back into the mid and upper 50s. For Wednesday, scattered showers and storms will roll back in. Some of those could be locally strong, highs lower 70s. Much cooler with some showers for Thursday. Chattanooga's best kept secret is at Boyd Speedway. Come see the Dirt Showdown Race #1 this Saturday night. Tickets and more at BoydSpeedway.net or Boyd Speedway on Facebook. And I'm Swarm Sheen 12's Chief Meteorologist Patrick Hoare. On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Redemption. Todd Gardenhire is interested in that. He's been redeeming himself with you, my listener, by supporting the effort to reform the civil asset forfeiture statute in Tennessee, which is a law that allows for the highwayman program to roll forward, to roll against the freedoms of the people traveling. Last year, about 3,700 incidents, encounters between the highwayman, that is to say the police officer, and the victim, the man or woman traveling on the highway whose goods are seized, whose car is seized on a suspicion that you're a bad person. Now, Gardenhire is with Rep. Mike Carter pushing another bill, which is somewhat in the redemption category, and that would be one, according to Chattanooga.com, this morning, to require the state controller to audit expenditures made from proceeds of the hotel-motel tax levied in the county. And that is because the Convention Visitors Bureau, $1 million of tax money, and Gardenhire caught his attention when he had a very lavish lunch, and he's saying, where's all this money coming from? This is all tax money. There just didn't seem to be a sense of thrift among this corporation. It is a private corporation serving a public interest, and has that is to market the area, market noted attractions in the area. Now, there's a lot of room there for skullduggery and favoritism. We're going to have an ad in Birmingham, or we're going to have an ad in the Miami market that promotes Chattanooga, and we're going to highlight this developer's property, or, well, we don't really like him so much. How about that one over there, the man we like? There is room for playing favorites in a scheme like that. This is David Tulis, and I'm glad you're giving me just a couple minutes of your time. That's all I need, just a couple minutes. And we're here giving local economy analysis and looking at the free market, how it works. The free market always works, even under Soviet absolutism. The free market works, and that's because human beings are human beings, and implied in the nature of man is the free market. But of course, since man has fallen, implied in the nature of man also is the controlled economy, right? The centralized, top-down economy, with one of the results being the inverted pyramid. And that is what we have today. And at the tiny tip are 90%, maybe 80% of the people and their assets. And the assets of the country are filled at the top of the pyramid, the large, wide part, right? That would be where the top 1% have 40% of the assets. And with easy credit today, they are siphoning up more and more, trickle up assets coming to them. And here in Chattanooga, one profit-making apartment complex after the next is being sold by the owners to hedge fund types whose money, who play on the gyrations of paper money, fiat money, and who make big bets, and whose bets are profitable, and they are hedge fund millionaires and billionaires, and they are close to the pumping heart of the national economy. Now, I wanted to mention a silencer bill passed in the Senate, according to one news source here. Let's see, this is WRCB TV, making note that the Senate has okayed a bill allowing the owners of boats, or maybe just the users of boats, to have guns on board, and another one to allow for silencers. A silencer saves on the hearing, but a silencer is very good for being able to fire and not draw attention to yourself. Very important asset. But if you have a sidearm with a silencer, it adds 6, 7, 8 inches to that contraption. Might be a little harder to carry around anymore. It's not like carrying around a small carbine any more than just a handgun. There's a story on Fox News that I think is of interest, and it touches on the question of whether we have immigrants here who are from Muslim countries. And I'm very much aware, having read a good deal of Bill Warner in Nashville and the study of Islam as a political system. Read other noted writers who understand that Islam is an invasive parasitical force that consumes countries, right? It's consuming Germany right now and France. These countries are perishing. Their Western cultures, neutralized of any soul or any spirit, having rejected Christianity. They have nothing with which to fight aggressively ideological and religiously oriented Mohammedanism. And so they're giving way. Churches all across Europe are closing, hundreds and hundreds of them, and going up hundreds of mosques where Allah, according to the decrees of his prophet Muhammad, is praised and worshipped. And in that form of religion, that is Islam. But Fox News says that Muslim converts are breathing new life into Europe's struggling Christian churches. This is a story that came out a few days ago that's just now coming to my attention. They're from Syria, Iraq, and Afghanistan, and they're converting to Christianity, and they are bringing life to the founding church in Europe. Of course, if the church's doctrine is as wishy-washy as it has become often here in Chattanooga, it's not sure that it can keep these former Muslims as faithful Christians or make them faithful Christians, because Christianity, like Islam, is full of antithesis. And the liberal church in this country, you could say even the evangelical church, has lost the antithesis. It has lost the sense of black and white, right, and contradiction, which is inherent in a system where God is sovereign and man is the creature, where God's law is total and absolute and an act of great grace. And men's laws are always contradictory, always wrong, always in the end unjust in their systems. It's illegal for people in Muslim countries to convert, and so when they get to Europe, according to Professor Matthew Kamenink, they have relief. Some, of course, convert to be sociable. They want maybe asylum, and they think they can get it more easily if they're professing Christians, and they identify with their new cultures where there are churches, where there are often icons of Jesus and Mary, and the whole panoply of saints in the Catholic telling of the crucifixion story in the sanctuaries. They see those things and they identify. The average Muslim newcomer in Europe experiences a tremendous amount of social pressure Kamenink says they experience racism, poverty, exclusion, discrimination, language and cultural barriers, and a deep sense of displacement. Their sense of homelessness is not only geographical, it's spiritual, and churches who offer these Muslims real and meaningful hospitality are seeing surprising results. And in Germany, there's so many former Muslims who love now the Lord Jesus and who want to understand grace. Grace is not a part of Mohammedan theory at all. Grace, where salvation is not anything that you do. You cannot obtain salvation. You cannot attain God's favor by your own works, your own rites and rituals, your own mantras, your own obedience, but it's all free. That's what's so staggering about Christianity. You're saved not by anything you do, but by God's free grace through faith. That is the kernel, you might say, the simple framing of the process that Luther argued for at the Council of Worms, and also in tapping his theses, his 95 theses on the heavy door of the Church of Wittenberg. In Germany, so many pools are being used now for baptism. People are baptized en masse in Germany, rejecting the Mohammedan claim about God, a unitary God, of course. There's no Trinity in Muhammad, just as there's no Trinity in Unitarianism. And so in Unitarianism and Mohammedanism, because it's unitary religion, you cannot have a free society. You can only have a free society only in no other system except Christianity, because it has three persons in one God. You have a relationship in the Godhead, and in that relationship, you have the allocation of duty and purpose, and you can solve the great question, the great one and the many question, which has bedeviled philosophers, but been satisfied and satisfactorily answered in Christianity and in its councils. This is David Tulis, and caller, you're live on the David Tulis program. And the number, by the way, for the other listener who might want to call is 800-8949, 800-8949. What's on your mind?
Well, David, you're entirely wrong about religion. The truth of the matter is that you can't have a free society unless you have eliminated institutionalized religion from the system, because then you have all these Bible thumpers, right, who are telling you how to live your life constantly, because then you don't have true freedom. I mean, think about how the gays were treated since, the 1600s. They're burning people at the stake, yeah? That's institutionalized religion. So you have the Puritans who come over on the Mayflower. They didn't really live in a free society. They lived in a strictly controlled society. So you really can't say that it's free if it's ruled by religion.
Okay, thanks for that call. I appreciate very much the bruising assault that you've made on my gentle assertions about Christianity. But does Christianity impose capital punishment on homosexuality? Well, it does if it's faithfully applied. How is that freedom? How is it free where marriage is defended? Well, that's what happens if you have adultery and if you have homosexuality, which are both forms of revolution against God and against man. If you have God's law rightly imposed on those two sins, and not just sins, but their crimes, then you have on the backside of that, you have protected marriage. And in marriage alone is there prosperity. In marriage alone can the family be raised. If you have no marriage, as we now have deconstructed marriage under the gay theory, with marriage deconstructed, with fidelity held in discount, where homosexual acts, where independent sexuality is espoused and lived out, you do not have the family, and you have pure radical individualism, which is sterile and revolutionary. And those are circumstances where there cannot be liberty. There can only be tyranny to keep down and to suppress, and tyranny that's necessary to support the welfare state, which these statuses bring about. And this is David Tulis, and caller, I have got you on my mind. What's on your mind?
Well, it's the state that it was the Supreme Court in the state. Don't blame gays. That was okay with licensing that under the guise of marriage, because a state license isn't a marriage. Anyone that went to a justice of the peace to get a license to get married, guess what? You're not married. You're living in sin. Marriage comes from God, and you have to have consummation. You have to have his blessing, and you have to hold yourself out to the community as being man and wife, and take on his last name if you're a woman. So if you went to the JP to get a license to be married, you're not married. You have a civil contract, but God doesn't recognize that. Number one. Number two, I mean, let's face it. Last caller talked about religion. Christians aren't bound by the Old Testament. Christ, we're not bound by law. There's nothing in the New Testament that says we're bound by law. Christ fulfilled the law. That thing about stoning gays and casting nooses around their neck of individuals that sin and throw them into the deepest ocean and beating your wife and things of that sort. That's Old Testament stuff. That's what Muslims believe. That's what non-Christians believe. That doesn't apply to Christians.
Well, all right, caller, you're saying that Christianity does not have any law in it at all. That it's all about subjective feeling. That the Ten Commandments, which is a summary of God's code for God's civil code for the Hebrew Republic, that it's irrelevant and can't be used today. It doesn't have any insight for us. It doesn't have any justice in it at all, is what you're saying. Should not be copied, is what you're saying. Well, I can see the appeal of that line of thinking, and many devout Christians who are churchgoers and faithful tithers even, they believe that. And what they are in effectively antinomian. What that means is they're anti-law. But I'm glad you pointed out that Christ was the fulfillment of the law. What that means is he's also the end of the law. Now, that verse is sometimes used to suggest that he ended the law of God, that when he came and rose from the dead, he abolished the law of God. Well, no, he didn't. When we're told by St. Paul that he is the end of the law, what that means is the law points to him. When you look at the law and you go down it, what do you see at the end? Well, you see your own sin, for one. You see the sin of your person. Then you see the sin of your city and your state. And what do you find? You find God. You find Jesus at the end of the law. He fulfilled the law. That means he lived out the law in every detail. He did not sin at all. He obeyed the law. All the laws that applied to him as an individual in the books of Moses, the first 5 books, he obeyed them, right? Every law that that under which he was a subject, he obeyed. And of course, since he was our high priest, the high priest of God's children, and their king, he obeys the other laws as well. The laws in the Old Testament that pertain to public worship and to private worship and to government. Christ, according to basic Christian theology, Christ fulfilled the law and did not destroy the law. In fact, in the Sermon on the Mount, he says that you have to obey it down to the last jot and tittle. And the one who says that you shouldn't, he will be least in the kingdom of God. And that's a warning to all those believing people who love the Lord Jesus, but who say, well, I would never read the Old Testament for any advice. I would never tell my local judge, you should read the Old Testament to find out what equity is all about. You should read the Old Testament to find out what justice is about. In fact, it does have insights for every form of government, whether self-government, national government. It has rules for warfare. It has rules for kings. It has rules against the draft. It has rules for who can be in your army and who shouldn't be in your army. It has rules for levels of taxation. A 10% tax level is tyrannical. When the Pharaoh under Joseph's administration seized the people of the land, he seized their cattle first, then their land, and finally their persons in the Great Famine before the Exodus. He taxed them at 10%, which was slavery, right? If you had to give 10% of your crop to Pharaoh every year after the Great Famine, you were a slave. He owned your cattle, he owned your land, and he owned you, and you could keep 90%, but you had to give him 10%. That was slavery. And of course, we have rates much higher than that. We think we're free. We think we're free people. Now, to get to something I'm going to have to bring up another day here on the David Tulis program at Nooga Radio, live on YouTube, live on Facebook, by the way, and with many, many points developed here, visible at Nooganomics.com. The whole question about courts in a free society. I've been thinking about courts because I'm writing about court cases here in Chattanooga, and a potentially explosive case, a potentially explosive question that has been raised that no media has covered. Right? No media has covered this story, but I have given many, many hours of reading and thinking and interviews on it. And you're finding out about it only here on the David Tulis program. You're not going to find out about it anywhere else. No other platform understands these issues quite like I do. So I give time where others give nothing. And where things that they cover, maybe in the daily news flow, that's fine that they do that. But David Tulis, your host here at Nooga Radio, I look at things in detail and try to get to the foundation, try to get to the fundamental question. And I've been, as part of that process, I've been reading Joel McDermott, who has from American Vision in Atlanta. He has a very fine book out that's called Restoring America. And he has been chapters on how we lost our freedom, whether it's in the use of executive power, the use of in welfare, in education. And he makes an argument for local economy and the free market and says several things about courts. And I've been intrigued by his application of the Bible to the problems of justice and the prospect, the very weak prospect in our courts today of finding justice, especially as we have the state as the accuser, and that would be in criminal matters. The state is always the accuser. How is it that the state ever has standing to accuse anybody? There's a fundamental a legal fiction that the state plays into when it is the accuser, pretending that it has been injured in a criminal matter. So when there's a bus crash, in the Woodmore bus crash, and you have 6 slain children, how is it that the state is the injured party and is prosecuting this case? It should be really there should be a change. There should be a reform in the jurisdictions. It should be a kind of a combined civil and criminal jurisdiction. And that, in fact, that distinction between civil and criminal, that as it's played now in courts, that distinction is going to cause a disruption because it is, in the end, I think it is incoherent. It is an incoherent jurisdiction, a distinction. But if we have it, we need to honor it. And if we honor it, then we have to see that there is a foundational problem in courts in Hamilton County and, in fact, all across the state. And the source of the problem is the $50 fine rule in the Constitution that was ruled upon back in 2001 by the Supreme Court, Mickey Barker's decision, that says something that is not being honored by the whole judicial industrial complex in the state. And that is that city courts and sessions courts are civil only. And that is a point being made by a defendant, and his name is Basil Marceau. He's a laughingstock. He slurs his speech. He seems not very intelligent. He's kind of a quack. He is a court jester in the eyes of many, but he's raising important questions, and there's a hearing in Judge Neil Thomas's circuit court on May the 1st on dealing with some of these claims. And I'm getting together a story explaining what the issue is. It's kind of a long story. It's past 1,700 words, but it gets into an incredibly fascinating and potentially explosive issue that you can learn about first here, right here at Nooga Radio. And this is David Tulis.
Hot News Talk 1240.
You have to file your 1040 now. We will handle it for you now. Liberty Tax Service will snip out every deduction, every benefit. Liberty Tax Service now. Red Bank, Saudi Daisy, Dayton. Liberty Tax Service now.
Competent, kind, caring, knowledgeable, experienced, great listener, great negotiator, in touch, accessible. If these are the characteristics you want and need in a realtor, you want and need Thomas DeMoss of Keller Williams Realty. Thomas is a very gifted realtor who puts the client's needs first. Whether you're buying or selling a home, Thomas is the realtor of choice. Thomas will help and guide you through each step of this very important process. For many of us, the purchase of a home is one of our largest investments and most important family and financial decision. Let Thomas use his 10 years of experience in the Chattanooga real estate market to give you the advantage you need when buying or selling a home. Buying a house? Thomas can help you navigate the emotional and somewhat anxious process of buying a home. For those of you who want to sell a house, Thomas uses his marketing and negotiating experience to help you sell your home for top dollar. Thomas is a local resident, raising his family here in Hamilton County. He knows the area very well. For many agents, real estate is a job. With Thomas DeMoss, it's a passion and what he loves to do. Call Thomas today for a no-obligation consultation. He makes the process as simple as possible. Call 423-364-0028 and visit his website, northriverpropertygroup.com.
Need a tiller to get things going for the spring? Spiff up your porch, maybe your deck? Come on by and get a pressure washer at Action Rental. Family in town, need some tables and chairs?